had dates for
Oh,
your
no, that's
ambassadorship
okay.
when you were in the
Sure,
U.S. rather
sure.
than China. Let me turn to China and Russia. As you know, in February of 2022, Putin and Xi issued a joint statement in which they said their relationship went beyond a traditional alliance and has no limits. Russia shortly thereafter invaded Ukraine, and the difficulties it's had in Ukraine, along with the economic sanctions, have created severe problems for the Russians and seem to make it increasingly dependent on China for political and economic support. What do you see as the realistic future for Russia, and how might this impact New Delhi's relationship with Moscow?
Well, I think in a way, Russia has historically seen itself as a European power, even though it's spread across both Europe and Asia. My expectation would be that the turn of the events, since 2022, would be because its relationship with Europe and with the West has been so severely disrupted, that Russia is actually turning to Asia and to other parts of the world, but primarily to Asia, because that's where a lot of economic activity is, and it is also an Asian power, even though it has not always seen itself primarily as that. So I would actually predict that Russia would make very strenuous efforts to build alternative relationships, a lot of which would be in Asia. And this would reflect itself in economics, in trade, possibly in other domains as well. Now, I know that Russia, China would have a particular profile, a particular salience in this. But I would also say that our own relationship with Russia has been extremely steady, since the mid-50s. And it's interesting if you look at the last about 70 years of world politics. US, Russia, China, Europe, Russia. Almost every one of these relationships has had very big ups and downs. I mean, there have been very bad periods in that relationship. There have been good periods in that relationship. Ours has actually, the India-Russia relationship has actually held very, very steady. So we've had the Soviet period, the post-Soviet period, and part of it is that I think there is an understanding in both countries that as big powers in the Asian continent, there is a kind of a structural basis for having to get along, wanting to get along. And so we take great care to make sure the relationship is working.
Let me turn to the U.S.-India relationship, which, as you know, has been on an upward trajectory for the last 20 plus years. The Prime Minister had a very positive state visit to the United States with new initiatives in defense cooperation, technology exchange, people-to-people relations, and otherwise. And yet one has to remember that India and the United States are not allies. They're strategic partners. India has, I think, a slightly different vision of a multipolar